Hello there and welcome once again to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Meyers. We're here every week meeting interesting people and dealing with topical issues, and we welcome in a guest today who has a quite series of accomplishments to discuss.
Yes, our guest today is Dwight Birdwell, who's a lawyer here in Oklahoma City, and on the July 5, 2022, he was awarded by President Biden the Congressional Medal of Honor for valor in combat in Vietnam. And he is quite a fine gentleman. I've known of him for a while, and we have talked a little bit in preparation for the show. But we think you're going to find this to be an exceptionally impelling story that he has to tell.
Dwight W. Birdwell, today's guest in The Verdict. We'll be right back.
Right now, 6 feet can feel like a long ways away. But from 6 feet, we can still smile at each other. From our doorways and our stairways, from opposite sides of the street and opposite sides of the country. Through fear and frustrations, we can remind each other that we are still here for each other. Because we can still smile at each other. And we're not going anywhere.
Military service ran in my blood, starting from my father, which joined the Navy. On the Chickasaw side, my uncle, which served in the United States Army. I'm Benjamin Espinosa, Chief Petty Officer, United States Navy, and I'm Chickasaw. I went to the Secretary of Defense's staff at the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., which ultimately led to becoming a combat support technician for Naval Special Warfare, specifically SEAL Team 10. I think to be proud and to love your tribe, to love being Chickasaw, you also have to love being American. You also have to love everything that America stands for. Equality, perseverance, professionalism, and power. I want my family to know that their father is a good person, but also feels that he has an obligation to the country and to love this nation. Anything worth having is worth dying for. The military and the country owes me nothing. I owe it everything.
See more stories about the Chickasaw people at profilesofanation.com.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Meyers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
Well, as we indicated in the open, our guest today is just a wonderful human being that I've come to know, Dwight Birdwell. I want to tell you a little bit about Dwight. We're going to talk, of course, this whole show is talking about him, but let me give you a little bit of a preliminary introduction. He is, as we indicated, a Congressional Medal of Honor winner, awarded to him by President Biden on July 5, 2022 in Washington, D.C. We'll talk more about that in just a second. He grew up in the town of Bell, Oklahoma, and if you didn't know where Bell is, it is in Adair County. Dwight graduated from Stillwell High School. He enlisted after graduation of high school into the United States Army, and after basic training was assigned to the 25th Infantry Division. This was during the Vietnam War. He saw significant action in Vietnam, and I will take a little bit more time in a minute to tell you more about that. And that action that he saw and his heroic conduct in the war brought about the recommendation for and the awarding to Dwight of the Congressional Medal of Honor. After the war, he came back to Northeastern State University, where he graduated with distinction. And then he graduated from the University of Oklahoma College of Law with high honors. So he had honorable mention by both the scholastic institutions from which he has graduated as being an outstanding student. He then came to Oklahoma City and started a law practice. He's still in law practice today in Oklahoma City. He is a member of the Cherokee tribe, and as part of his practice, He served on the tribal court of the Cherokee Nation, including being for a while, for a while, Chief Justice of the Cherokee Supreme Court. He is a member of the Oklahoma Military Hall of Fame. He is the first graduate of the University of Oklahoma College of Law to ever be awarded the Medal of Honor. He is the first member of the Oklahoma Bar Association that anybody can locate that was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor, just to show you how rare this distinction is. And he has agreed to talk to us today a little bit about the medal ceremony at the White House and his childhood, as well as the action that brought about the awarding of the medal. Dwight, really glad to see you, and thank you so much for giving us your time.
You're welcome.
Yeah. It's good to have you.
Thank you.
You were mentioning Adair County, near the Arkansas line. What was it like growing up in the community of Bell?
Well, looking back on it, it was a nice childhood, very rural area, many grapevines to swing on, a big creek by the house. We kept both sides of the creek well worn down, running up and down the creek looking for fish and places to fish and swim. And many Cherokees use that creek as a way to feed their families, fishing and also catching what's called a crawdad. And it was a source of supply, but we kept that creek busy, and it helped in many ways my time in the military, my experiences.
Well, you grew up on a family farm doing the typical chores of that era.
Right.
And you were mentioning that you think it helped prepare you for later life, including your time in the military. Explain what you're talking about there.
Well, very hard work, early in the morning. My parents would get up at about 3:30, and I'd be up at 5, and we'd get after the day, and I was taught the value of hard work and what happens when you don't work hard. We didn't have much money to speak of at all, and we did a lot of improvisation and taught to repair things yourself, and that paid off in the military. When the streams would rise in the spring, there was no way to cross them. Somebody would cut a tree, lay a tree across the stream. That was what we called a foot log, a way to cross the stream. And my father taught me how to fire a rifle and how to be accurate with it, and just a wonderful life. He also taught me the value of life, not only human, but the value of conserving wildlife. Don't take any more than what you need, if you need any at all. And it was just really a good time. I feel very blessed.
You entered the Vietnam War at a time, and it was quite heated.
Yes.
Yeah, so talk about the circumstances of your entering and joining the Army.
Well, I graduated from high school in '66, went through basic training. I ended up in Korea for 10 months on the DMZ, listening to Little Kim's grandfather broadcast across on loudspeakers. And after 10 months on the DMZ, I was transferred to Vietnam, 25th Infantry Division, and placed in an armor unit. For the first 3 months, I served in the infantry section. And the platoon sergeant discovered I'd been trained as a armor crewman or tanker, and he transferred me to his tank. He was seriously wounded a few days later. And then we were in heavy combat most of my time there. Different periods it would slow down, but there were daily episodes, daily contact. It never ceased. It never slowed down. During the time I was there, there were over 70 men killed and many more seriously wounded, lost limbs, and and other body parts, and it was a challenging time.
Kent's going to discuss some of the accolades and actions that led to this presentation of the war. But what setup does it need? What was your role? What were you doing when the actions that occurred that ultimately led to this medal?
Well, I had just been transferred to the platoon sergeant's tank, and he was wounded just a day or two after my transfer. Another acting platoon sergeant took over. On the 31st of January, we went to Thompson Ute Air Base, which at that time was the busiest air base in the world. I was told the plane took off or landed there every 30 seconds. And the North Vietnamese and Viet Cong with hundreds and hundreds of their troops were trying to overrun the base, and we didn't know the size. And about 80 of us went down to deal with them, and the North Vietnamese let us move into the middle and then let loose with their ambush, and the lead platoon was pretty well annihilated within just a few seconds. And my vehicle was the lead tank. My tank commander was shot in the head, and I evacuated him to safety and took over the tank, and that's how the story, I guess, about the Medal of Honor begins.
We probably shouldn't start the discussion here in this. We got about 45 seconds left. But did you feel like you were prepared for that day's events and the days that followed?
Well, I was well trained at Fort Polk, at Fort Knox. My time in Korea helped. Personally, I don't think you can ever have enough training. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, there's no such thing as enough training, but I had enough to know what to do. And very, very blessed to be in a position of being, I considered, well trained.
Dwight Birdwell is our guest. He's a recipient of the Congressional Medal of Honor. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, Kent's going to go through some of the events and actions that took place that led to the awarding of the medal by President Biden. We'll be right back.
At Whitten Burridge, we're litigators. That's all we do. All of our clients, some sort of wrong has occurred to them. We try to right that wrong. Corporate America, they have all the power. It's sort of like going against an army. I like helping the underdog. That's what gets me up out of bed every day.
Our success rate is phenomenal, but that's not all they get. We care about people.
I'm very proud of what we've been able to do for our clients, and I'm looking forward to what we're going to do in the future. There's still a lot of wrongs that need to be righted.
We want to reach out to every veteran we can in Oklahoma. There's somewhere around 340,000 veterans here in Oklahoma, and half of those are still unaware of the benefits or don't know how to go about getting them.
We help guide the veterans through the VA system. It's a giant maze, and we kind of help guide them through that maze. So our job is to try to help the veterans get everything that they're legally entitled to. There's just a special place in my heart for our Vietnam veterans and our World War II veterans, as well as any veteran, and that's why I do the job.
OU Law has a history and heritage that are unparalleled. At the University of Oklahoma College of Law, we empower our students to pursue the career of their dreams. We have the highest U.S. News ranking ever achieved by an Oklahoma law school. We are the first law school in the country to launch a college-wide digital initiative. And this year, our competition teams rank number 2 in the nation. OU Law, generations of excellence, limitless possibilities.
We're back on the set of The Verdict. Mick, Cornett, Kent Meyers, and our guest, Dwight Birdwell, a recipient of the Medal of Honor. And Kent, it's a pretty lengthy explanation of all of the things that Dwight did, but what can you tell us about those days? Because I suspect Dwight's going to leave some details out if he tells the story about himself. What can you tell us?
Well, allow me, viewers, to read from the proclamation, because I think that is the best summary that I could come up with. And I'll, as Dwight was telling us before we went to the break, His tank organization had been surrounded in an ambush, and the tank commander was injured. Dwight mounted the tank and assumed the tank commander's position, and he stood in the tank commander's hatch with the upper half of his body exposed to heavy enemy fire. He used the tank's 50 caliber machine gun and 90 millimeter gun to suppress the enemy attack. When the ammunition for the 90 millimeter gun was out, he continued to fire the 50 caliber until it overheated. At that point, Dwight, rather than abandoning his position, continued to engage the enemy with his M16 rifle, sometimes exposing his entire body to the enemy fire in order to engage them from a better vantage point. Then, of course, not expected, a U.S. helicopter coming to aid crashed, and Dwight, under withering enemy fire, mounted and moved the helicopter two M60 guns and ammunition, and gave one of the M60 guns and ammunition to a fellow soldier. He then remounted the tank and used the other M60 gun to once again engage the enemy. He continued to engage the enemy with complete disregard for his own safety until the M60 was hit by enemy fire. Dwight was wounded in the face, neck, chest, and arms, but he didn't give up. He dismounted the tank but refused to be medically evacuated. Instead, under enemy fire, he rallied his fellow soldiers to advance to the front of the armored column, where they set up a defensive position. From this position, he and the other soldiers engaged the enemy and fired M16 rifles and grenades. As the enemy fire lessened, Dwight gathered the ammunition in disabled vehicles and helped wounded soldiers move to safer positions. His leadership and tenacity under fire enabled his fellow soldiers from C Troop to continue fighting against a superior force, and directly contributed to the enemy's ultimate defeat. His extraordinary heroism and selflessness above and beyond the call of duty were in keeping with the highest traditions of the military service and reflect great credit upon himself, his unit, and the United States Army, signed by President Biden.
My goodness.
You just went from one fight to another.
What flashes through your mind when you're hearing someone go through that?
A little bit embarrassed to hear about it. I'm not a person who seeks glory, and to hear that is, I'm shy. It's a bit embarrassing.
Yeah. Well, you're just a person that doesn't necessarily enjoy talking about themselves. You'd rather bring positive attention to other people. How often do you flash back to that day? Is this something that happens to you quite frequently or quite rarely? Is it something you've tried to block out?
Well, somebody asked one time, when did you leave Vietnam? And my best answer, really, truthfully, is last night. I think about it all the time. I do well to sleep an hour or so each night. If I sleep that long, something comes through my mind, and I replay things. I should have done this, I should have done that, I could have done it better, and sometimes have dreams that aren't pleasant. But I don't think many people can go through that kind of situation and be the same the rest of their life. I think it affects you in many ways, not for the best, but by the same token, gosh, I'm proud to have served. I served, brought honor to the Cherokee people, and served the United States. What greater honor can you have than serve your country and serve your people?
Well, you have done it extraordinarily well, better than most any soldier that's ever served, because the number of Medal of Honor winners is quite small, and Dwight is among them. I can tell you from the standpoint of our viewers here on The Verdict, we thank you for your service. You have just been an outstanding human being and an outstanding witness to how to live a good life. You put in the worst circumstances and you excelled, and you've excelled in everything you've ever tried to do. And you're to be commended not simply for your proficiency, but for your effort. Because it doesn't come easy. And we are so grateful that you would come join us on this show, because you're the first and I'm sure will be the only Congressional Medal of Honor winner. I just hope we can get you back.
Thank you.
At another show.
Tell us about the ceremony and meeting the president.
Well, it was quite an event at the White House. Before the actual ceremony, he took me into a side room where he signed the 2 certificates signifying the award of the Medal of Honor. He had the First Lady with him, and he's very gracious. He told me about the death of his son who had served in the military, and it was obvious that he hadn't got over that. I don't think you ever can get over the death of a child, but incredibly gracious, humorous person. His wife, the First Lady, was likewise very kind, very helpful to him. I could see nothing but unrelenting devotion in her as far as he's concerned. Then we went to the ceremony, and he performed flawlessly. He's standing up there for over an hour, and I'm thinking, you know, that would be hard for a 40-year-old man to do what he's doing, and he's a few years beyond 40, but he performed just perfectly, beyond perfectly. And he put the medal around my neck, and at that very moment I was thinking, you know, you're not that far away from the strawberry patch, because as a little boy I had picked strawberries for money in the springtime, and I just had flashback thinking about picking berries, and here I am in the White House. But very, very humbling ceremony.
We have a picture of the medal itself.
Yeah, let's bring that up.
There it is. What do you think when you see that medal? Obviously, you'd seen it before you knew you were going to be a recipient. What does it mean?
Well, it immense pride, and as I said in another ceremony, really the medal belongs to the unit, the men of the unit who fought with me that day. We defeated a vastly superior North Vietnamese force that overran several vehicles, were literally on top of us. They fought with valor. It signifies what they did. Those who didn't make it, their families can take pride in knowing that their family members did their best. So it more than me, it belongs to the unit. It is a credit to the unit. I'm very happy that it was awarded for the sake of those that I served with. But it's just to look at it, I sometimes think, are you sure you're dreaming? Not dreaming? But it's overwhelming. I'd read somewhere, I don't know if it's accurate, that there have been 33 Native Americans in history awarded the Medal of Honor, and I don't know if I'm 33 or 34, but I'm proud to have brought honor to the Cherokee people and Native people in general.
All right. Dwight Birdwell, recipient of the Medal of Honor and today's guest in the verdict. Thanks so much for coming on and allowing us to share your story.
Yeah, thank you, Dwight. Really do appreciate it. I know it's not easy for you, and we do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Kent and I'll have a final word when we get back.
This is the epidemic of my generation. This is my HIV. This is my Black Plague.
In the midst of one of our state's largest crises,
Oklahomans are dying from this preventable and treatable disease on a daily basis.
We believe there's hope.
That little pill will cause destruction through your whole life.
Watch the entire award-winning 9-part docuseries Killing Pain, made available by Fighting Addiction Through Education at killingpain.com.
It used to be okay in teachers' lounges. It used to be okay in maternity wards. It was okay in sporting arenas, college campuses, and office spaces. But now that we understand the deadly dangers of secondhand smoke, that's not okay anymore. So why is it okay that thousands of employees are exposed to it every day at work? Bottom line, it's not okay. Let's protect hardworking Oklahomans. Join the fight at stopswithme.com.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
I think for us, once we got started and we began to see the tremendous need just within our state, it really was just a calling for us. The blessings far outweigh any obstacles that we've faced.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
Welcome back to the set of the verdict. I don't really know what to say. I mean, when I heard you describing the actions of that specific day by Dwight Birdwell, it just took my breath away.
Well, and I didn't do it in its entirety because time did not permit, but I tried to put the most important salient things in there. But he is just a fine human being. He's as humble as it was appearing today on the show. That's exactly how he is, and well liked by everybody.
Well, and someone that all Oklahomans can be proud.
Indeed.
And a member of the Cherokee Nation. We have a website. You can get more information about our show, theverdict.tv. We'll have a guest next week. I hope you'll join us. See you then.